Charles Robert Darwin and Natural Selection by Keegan Gibbons. Charles Robert Darwin was born on February 12, 1809 in Shrewsbury, Shropshire, England. His father was a financier by the name of Robert Waring Darwin. His mother's name was Susanna Wedgwood. On the right is a picture of Charles Darwin in his later years. Charles was one of 6 children conceived by Robert and Susanna, and although his siblings were raised Unitarian, Charles was baptized secretly by his father in the Anglican Church while he was a baby. In 1817, at the age of 8, Darwin began school at the local Unitarian chapel. In that same year, his mother died. After the death of his mother, Robert Darwin enrolled Charles in the nearby Anglican Shrewsbury School. Charles attended the Anglican school for 7 years before moving on to Edinburgh in 1825 to prepare for the medical profession. However, while at Edinburgh, Darwin discovered he was not fit to be a physician. He found lectures to be extremely dull and boring and could not stand the sight of blood or suffering. Charles left Edinburgh after 2 years and enrolled at Christ's College, a constituent college of the University of Cambridge. At Christ's College, Charles discovered his passion for naturalism. It soon became his main topic of study while at school. He received his BA degree on April 26, 1831, and shortly thereafter, he learned all the basics of field geology on a tour of North Wales. Upon returning from North Wales, Charles was given the opportunity to take his soon-to-be famous 5-year voyage around the world on board the HMS Beagle. While on his journey, Darwin took meticulous notes and documented everything he saw regarding both geology and zoology. After returning from his journey around the world, Charles quickly put himself to work trying to let the world know what he had discovered. But a series of never-ending health problems would continue to slow him down. He was constantly needing to take breaks from his work because he would push himself too hard. On one of these such breaks, Darwin soon reconnected with his cousin, Emma Wedgwood, who would later become his wife. Charles and Emma were married on January 29, 1839. Following his marriage to Emma, Charles continued to gain a massive amount of respect from the scientific community by repeatedly publishing books on his finds on the Beagle voyage. But his crown jewel, the theory of natural selection, was still years away from being ready. By the beginning of 1856, Charles was still trying to perfect his theory. An American botanist by the name of Asa Gray began to show similar interest, so Charles sent her a copy of his work to get some feedback. She asked him if he would touch on human evolution, and Darwin responded no, saying that the subject was so surrounded with prejudices. Then, in June of 1858, Charles received a paper from a man named Alfred Russel Wallace describing natural selection. Charles was so shocked that he rushed to set up a presentation at the Linnean Society, but he eventually could not make it due to the death of his son. To add to the disappointment, the announcement of his theory was paid little attention. Professor Samuel Houghton even went as far to say as, "All that was new in them was false, and all that was true was old." Finally, on November 22, 1859, Charles published his theory of natural selection in On the Origin of Species. Charles stated his theory in the introduction as clear as day. As many more individuals of each species are born than can possibly survive, and as, consequently, there is a frequently reoccurring struggle for existence, it follows that any being, if it vary however slightly in any manner profitable to itself, under the complex and sometimes varying conditions of life, will have a better chance of surviving and thus be naturally selected. From a strong principle of inheritance, any selected variety will tend to propagate its new and modified form. The book turned out to be an unexpected hit, oversubscribing the first 1,250 copies. It raised immediate international interest and was met with a mixture of praise and scrutiny. And although Charles could not publicly defend his book, he did so from the confines of his home. The Church of England looked on the book with both approval and dismissal. Many conservative clergymen dismissed the idea as false, but on the other hand, more liberal clergymen saw in Charles's theory the idea that natural selection was one of God's instruments of design. In conclusion, Charles Robert Darwin was one of the most brilliant minds ever to walk this earth. His theory of natural selection changed how many people view the earth and its inhabitants today. He sparked the minds of millions of people after him. All in all, without the discoveries that Charles made on his voyage on the HMS Beagle, our world would be a completely different place.